Callie with Agaviation Adventures, and today we're staying on the ground. I'm going to show you the Loadsite. Now the two white tanks behind me, those are fuel tanks. The larger one is Jet A and the smaller one is Avgas. You can also see our fuel pump here. It's an electric fuel pump, and that's how we get the fuel into the airplane. You can see the black tanks on both sides of the building. That's the water. The water is fed from the building into those tanks, and we actually have on the main tank here a backflow valve preventing anything from getting into the tank and then back into the water source. We also have an automatic shutoff with a float valve, which is really nice, really easy to keep the tanks full at all times. Those three tanks are all plumbed together, so we always have plenty of water. Let's go ahead and go inside. All right, now that we're in here, you can see where the magic happens. Now we actually have a mirror image on this side as well as that side. So we have two separate places to load from. This is really great. We can keep fungicide and insecticide on one side, herbicide on another side. Also, it's nice in case something happens with this pump when we're super busy, we can easily move to the other side and use that as a backup. We always clean everything out when we're spraying herbicide, so it's not a huge deal to have the separate sides, but it is nice. Now you can see I have this glyphosate tank in here right now, and I'll usually keep that in here for the entire season, plumbed into the north side. There's also plenty of room for pallets, so if we're working on one thing in particular, I'll bring a bunch of chemical out here and leave it in here. This building locks, and so it's nice to be able to just leave your chemical out here. Right now we're doing beet fungicide occasionally, so I have all of that chemical here. But when we're super busy, I can fit 2 pallets of chemical back there and 3 pallets here, or bulk tanks, depending on what we're doing. It's really nice to be able to get everything in here, have it all set up so those late nights and early mornings aren't extended at all by moving chemical around. Now in Minnesota, you do have to have a containment, so this entire building has a containment around it in case of a spill. Like I said, these sides are pretty mirror images of each other, so we'll just run through the one side here. This is what we typically use the most of. On the ground behind the cones, you can see the 3-inch line coming in. That's my main water line coming in. There's also a one-way check valve on that line. So then we have all of this, and how does it work? Basically, we have a mixed tank here and 2 cones, and then our main water line. The nice thing about having a mixed tank is that if you're doing any dry work, you can put your dry material in there and you can actually recirculate it with the pump. How is that done? You can see this line coming in here and this one coming out. So this has a valve on it. So if we wanted to recirculate, we would open this valve and then we'd come over to our pump and we'd open this valve. This valve is primarily just left open. Now, because the end of our line has a dry lock on it and it's closed, we can flip the pump on and it will then recirculate through here into the tank. Like I said, it works really well if you're doing a lot of dry material. If we're just doing a liquid, we're just using the cones. So you can see that I have 2 hookups here. So if I have a bulk tank of anything, I can easily plumb it in, keep it hooked up while we're doing that, and the cone is marked so I can read how much is going in. That's if we're not using 2.5 gallon jugs. If we're using 2.5 gallon jugs, I'm just dumping them in to the exact amount that I need, and then you can see that each cone has a valve on it. So when the plane shows up and I start pumping him with water, I'll then come over here and I'll crack the water valve a little bit, just because there can be a lot of pressure with the water and it'll push what's in your cone up. So I crack that valve so there's not so much pressure, and then I can open the cone valve, empty that into the airplane, rinse it out, and then shut the valve. Then I would open the water valve back up all the way to fill the plane. After all of the chemical is in the plane, we'll just keep the water going until he's full or until he tells me to shut it off, and then we'll turn the pump off, shut the water line, disconnect, and he's ready to go. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Loadsite here that we're using at the operation that we work for. There's so many different options when it comes to Loadsites. We've loaded out of semi-trailers, no trailers, containers, lots of different options, and they can all be really simple, which is key. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and we'll get back to you. Also, if you're wondering what we're up to or you want to see some behind the scenes, make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at agaviationadventures. Thanks again for watching. I'm Callie.